Hi everyone, Amy here with amyswares, and I have a couple fall rainbow cards to share with you today. Now I have a couple of new stencils from A Colorful Life Designs. These are part of the September release. Be sure to check out the rest. There's loads of fall inspired and some other kind of Halloween creepy and some other fun ones in this lineup. I have a couple of dies from Simon Says Stamp, some Catherine Pooler inks, and here is a photo of the finished cards to show you where we're headed. But I'm going to start working on this surface here. This is a low-tack stick mat from Altenew. I have it set up on a cake decorating turntable, and I'm going to start with simple leaf frame. I am kind of moving a little bit towards the top of the card base. I believe I'm working right on a card base. But still centered on that composition. I'm just kind of figuring out the layout just to make sure that it won't cover up too much of the stenciling if I put that die down. But I'm going to use some 2inch post-it tape just to mask off the bottom so I don't get ink where I don't want it once I start ink blending. So I'm just using my little wire snips here to separate the shadow layer from the word die layer. This is my first time using these from a recent Simon order. So I'm just snipping these little bits. Sure not to let it fling and hit me in the eye. Be careful when you're doing that. Do it over a trash can or maybe into a paper towel or something like that. But I'm picking a rainbow of colors. Now these are all from the Spa collection. So these aren't going to be as bright and in your face. These are a little bit more earthy, a little bit more, I don't know, subdued. They're not quite as bright as the Party collection from Catherine Pooler. But I'm starting with yellow. I like to do that when I think of it because yellow tends to get lost in the shuffle. Once you start overlapping it with other colors, it tends to get smaller and smaller and it gets overtaken. So I tend to start with the yellow and make it kind of a big section, knowing that I'm going to overlap and I don't want to lose the yellow in the finished product. So I'm working all the way around, kind of spinning my turntable here, and I'm going to peel back the stencil to show this really rich, deep rainbow from this cool wreath design. So this could be fall, you could make this Christmas. Honestly, this is a year-round versatile sort of stencil. So as you saw, I'm going to use the focal point of a sentiment, but you could easily use this with maybe another stencil inside or a stencil sentiment, or you could even do a critter. So that's what I love about these frame sort of stencils. They really just kind of create an eye path and create a focal point on your card. So I'm cutting these both out in white, and you'll see why in a moment here. I'm just going to push out the little inner bits and whatnot, but I have You're in My Thoughts, and then I have the shadow layer, which I'm going to leave in white. So I'm just going to kind of go through with these same colors, put down this rich, deep color, the same color I used in the rainbow, and then just put this all over the You're in My Thoughts sentiment. So it will have the same colors, but it'll have the separation of the background by using and leaving that shadow layer white. So I often will do die cutting in white, both layers, just because I know even if I don't use it at that moment and I put it in my sentiment binder, that I can customize it later to perfectly match my card. So once I get all this ink blending done, you can see, yeah, it doesn't stand out enough on its own, but when you put that white shadow layer, it really helps it pop off the background. So I'm going to use some liquid glue to adhere the word layer to the shadow layer. You could do this any number of ways if you have micro dots. I usually kind of shy away from the liquid glue because I don't like the oozage, but I have gotten a little bit more daring lately, and I've just been kind of pouncing it off on a little scratched piece of paper, and that really does cut down on the oozage, so it makes me not go as crazy using liquid glue in this case. So I used a big old huge heavy stamping block just to kind of hold it down and let the glue cure a little bit, and then I'm going to pop it up off the composition with this foam tape. This is a roll of 2-inch foam tape from scrapbook.com. Just kind of slowly working through this. I do usually prefer the 1-inch, but it was out of stock for a while, so now I'm working through my 2-inch. I'm just going to pop this up on the composition and pick out what sort of bling. Now do stick around. I am going to make a second card here. I'm kind of going in a little bit of a different order than I normally would, but I did decide to use this glossy white blingage on both cards. So I'm just going to put some in my little jewel picker tray here and lay them down in an odd number, usually either 3 or 5, and that's going to finish this card. Now for the second one, again, I'm going to work right on a card base. So same thing, A2 US, A2 4¼ inches by 5½. And now I have the flower globe 6x6. So this, I'm just figuring out the composition, whether I want to go vertical or horizontal and how far I want the stenciling to come in. I am going to mask off that edge just to make sure that I don't ink blend over that, because that would put a sharp edge of color where I don't want it on the composition. So using the same exact colors, still going with the rainbow theme, and then just doing the stenciling of this beautiful flower globe right on the card base. And I'm going to do something very similar with the sentiment with a slight variation. I'll show you in just a moment here. But I'm just working through the colors of the rainbow: red, yellow, green, blue, purple, same as before. And I feel like it's got that touch of fall with it being the spa collection colors versus the party. It's just got that deep fall earthy feel to it. So same thing, I'm going to snip this one out. Now this one is a little bit more fiddly in that it does have a tittle. I usually like to find dies that have a connected tittle. That's the little dot on top of an eye, if you didn't know. But this one isn't too bad. It's still connected enough. It wasn't fiddly. So I still really liked it, and I liked the sentiment. I thought it was a little bit different than some of the other ones. So in this case, the difference that I'm doing, I'm leaving the die in the frame of the paper. This gives it a little bit more stability. I didn't want the die cut to kind of move around or get torn or bent up when I was ink blending. So this is a way to kind of minimize any bending of your paper if you're kind of rough with ink blending like I tend to be. So that's an option. Otherwise, another option, depending on your design, is you could leave the word portion white and then do the ink blending on the shadow layer instead. Now you can see here, I realized I didn't actually cut all the way through, so I lined the die back up, ran it through my die cutting machine again. I stuck the tittle to a little piece of mint tape or post-it tape so it didn't get lost, and now I'm going to poke out the little bits with my fabulous new Judy tool. You can see this is a new one she sent me. It's got a teal mushroom on it, and I absolutely love it. So it's still being a little bit fiddly, but again, like I said, I didn't realize I didn't die cut it all the way through the first time. So if that happens, have no fear. Just kind of wiggle your die back into the spot where it's supposed to go. You'll feel it kind of locks in place. Tape it down and run it through again, and you should be good to go. Now this same thing, I have the separation of the white shadow layer to kind of pop that off the background. Just glued that down. Putting the little tittle down. It's the last little fiddly bit of this, not too bad. And then same thing, I will pop up that sentiment on the card base, just like I did on the other one, just to kind of give it some further separation from the background, but otherwise a very simple design. So if you're die cutting a bunch of sentiments out, think about doing them in white, so you can either customize them on the spot or have them plain and customizable for the future. Same thing, same blingage, 2 different variations, 2 new stencils, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. Be sure to check out all of the new September release. It's super cool. And use my coupon to save some loot, AmyFan10. So I'll catch you next time.